All right, we are now live for the birthday bash. I've got a mug of a local beer here, Sprecher Black Bavarian, one of the very first craft brews that I ever had. The Sprecher Brewery has been here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for a long time. It recently changed hands as the original owner retired, so I've got my beer for a toast. I hope all of you do. Mark Smith says they dropped the alcohol ban there last night in South Africa, where they had done that as part of their COVID stuff. There's a whole conversation to be had there about whether that was prudent or not. So he's ready to join for today's toast. So let's toast to say for each of us a long lifetime and plenty of productive work to do. And, like Alfred Hitchcock talks about his vision of happiness as being a clear road ahead to engage in creative work. Let's all toast to that for each one of us. That's a good beer. It's been a while since I've had it, and I'm really happy to have it again. I remember when I turned 21, my mom had always been kind of down on, underage drinking. And I was in the generation where older people than us actually could drink at 18. And then they changed the law while I was in high school. And we were all like, this sucks, right? And then I went off in the Army. And of course, I could drink on post and in Germany, and came back. And on my 21st birthday, my mom actually, she went out and she came back, and this was one of the beers. Of course, the bottles were different then. They were big and fat that she brought. And then there was the special amber, and I think there was one other thing. Sprecher only had 4 kinds at that. So a lot of people wishing happy birthday. Thanks. I do have to mention I'm not yet 50. The reason we're doing it early today is because some of you may have seen on my Twitter or Facebook, the Democratic National Convention is less than a block from here in the Wisconsin Center, and there's probably going to be a lot of craziness and chaos. So we wanted to make sure that we'd actually have Wi-Fi to be able to do this. I don't know what's going to happen. They've already put up steel barricades going all the way down our street. There's cops all over the place. There's DNC all over the place. So that's going on. Maybe you'll, provided everything goes well, I'll take some photos and maybe video over the next couple days. So let me read a few of the birthday wishes. A lot of people are saying happy birthday. Ron says, wish I were 50 again. I'll be saying that, in a while myself. I never thought I would get this old, so maybe, Ron, you can relate to that as well, And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a few moments, but man, not only did I never think I'd be this age, but I also kind of feel like there's still a teenage 20, 30-year-old Greg in me still, doing things and still, moving this older body around. But my heart feels young. Andy says, happy birthday from the next room. That's, as many of you know, my wife and partner in so many different things. She's over literally in the other room. We're in the spare bedroom where my kids often bunk, and right now some longer things here. Camille says, wish you long and great life. Thanks, yeah, and to you too. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. 50 is a good vantage point for thinking about, well, how much longer do I actually have? Irakli, there we go, says, wish you the best. Love your videos. They're super helpful. Thanks. I'm glad that the videos are helpful for you. Some people have been asking, are you going to keep on doing videos? And why not? Why not do another 10 years or 20 years, provided YouTube still, maintains the same sort of thing that they're doing. And I suppose if that platform goes down, we could put them on Vimeo or something else. Real Lavi says, happy early birthday, Professor Metal. Thanks. Yeah, we had a great classic metal class yesterday. And on my actual birthday, I'm going to spend some time doing some writing in heavy metal philosopher. Peter says, happy early birthday. Thanks for all that you do. Wish I found your lectures channel sooner. You find them when you find them. Like I think Epicurus says somewhere that, there's no like bad age for beginning philosophy. You just start when you start. Kevin says, I assume I'd be dead by 50, blew past that. Yeah. Glad you're not. Yeah, I mean, it really puts things in perspective. For August, some of you may have seen me talking about my dad, who now has been dead for more years than he was ever alive. He died, he was only 36 years old, and they couldn't find out what was wrong with him, even up at the Mayo Clinic, which is one of the best places here in the United States. Really puts things in perspective. I've outlived him, when I turned 50 by 14 years, quite a long time. Kevin says, I love your lectures. Hi from Miami. Glad you like them. Must be pretty hot down there right now. Mike says, I just turned 54 last month. It's been a hell of a strange ride lately. Yeah, it's been one weird year, has it not? QQT77 says, I wish you the best. You helped me a lot to understand Stoic philosophy. Well, good. Yeah. And that is a sort of, area that I work in. There's a playlist for those who are interested in Stoic philosophy in particular that you can just Google Sadler Stoic playlist, and there's over 200 videos in there now. So that's kind of nice. Yashodara says, a very happy birthday. Your lectures are amazing. They've helped me in my hour of need. I wish you all the best wishes. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad the lectures are helpful to you. And, so I'm going to, before I jump into talking about 50, let me say something about, retrospect about video lectures and stuff like that. So I started recording my video lectures when I was still at Fayetteville State University in 2011. And one of the things that told me what was going on when I started posting videos was there were comments that were like, oh, this is really helpful. Thanks for that. And then there were lots of comments where there were people saying things like, my professor won't explain anything. Thank you for doing this lecture. This has been really helpful because I couldn't get anything out of this person over here. And I was like, oh man, that sucks for them, right? But there's a lot of bad teachers out there. Bad not only in the sense of like can't effectively teach, but I think in the sense of don't want to teach. And so if you're stuck with one of those, that's helpful. And then there were a lot of people who are like, oh man, I'm so glad I couldn't go to school. I can't afford to go to college, but watching these lectures lets me kind of feel like I'm in the classroom and getting to enjoy some of that. So that told me that there was this incredible hunger out there that was not being satisfied. When I saw enough of these, like hundreds of comments. And that hunger is for something that's kind of like a Goldilocks thing, not too much, not too little. It's for presentation of ideas in such a way that it can relate to the average person, right, or average student. So they it's speaking their language, you could say, but at the same time, it's not losing the rigor. It's not dumbing everything down. And I was actually talking about, here's some ideas, some examples. Here's how it applied to your own life. And so, that there's a lot of people who want that, and it's not being served by our typical media stuff. Anytime you see like a philosopher in a TV show, it's usually kind of garbage, or it's really dumbed down and oversimplified. It's not being served by our universities, which, despite doing a little bit of outreach, they're not reaching the ordinary person. So, I saw a niche, and I was like, well, I'll do this. I may not be the best person for some of these thinkers. Half-hour Hegel videos are a great example. I haven't written books on Hegel. I've studied him quite a bit, but I'm not a Hegelian. But nobody else is going to do it, so I'll do it, right? All right, let's see. We got some more comments here. Let me address those. Irakli says, how many videos have you posted? So I think videos that I've publicly posted, because I do have some that I like create framing videos for my online classes that I don't make public. Probably about 1,700 or so at this point in time. I've taken a few of them down. Like when YouTube first started, you actually couldn't post anything longer than 10 minutes, and then it was 15 minutes. So I like did things in sequences, and then I took those down and re-added them into longer ones. Hangover says, prior to the pandemic, were you still going to metal shows? If so, will you continue so in your 50s? Well, when the pandemic is over, yeah, we're going to continue going to metal shows. That's something that Andy and I both share in and really enjoy. She has much wider tastes in music than I do. I mean, I do like some non-metal bands, like, I like John Cougar Mellencamp, and I like Duran Duran, and things here and there. But for the most part, it's been metal. And yeah, the last show that we saw, we were actually scheduled to see Deep Purple and Judas Priest, and didn't get to because we were both sick, unfortunately. That was last fall. So what was the last show we actually got to see? It might have been Blue Oyster Cult. I don't remember, but I mean, it's been a while, but we've seen a lot of people. We've seen in recent years, we've seen Uriah Heep, Judas Priest a couple times, Kiss, Saxon, Ace Frehley, Rat when they were still arguably Rat. There's a whole story to talk about there. We saw Iron Maiden and Alice Cooper here in Milwaukee at Summerfest years ago when we were still living in New York. Or maybe actually that might have been before I moved up. And we've seen, Raven and Accept and Udo on his own, and a whole bunch of other bands as well. So yeah, I hope we get to see them. Mark says, what's been your best decade so far? Is that an off-kilter question? That is a good question. Best decade so far, probably the last one. I've been getting back in shape. It's a struggle, not so much on a physical level, but on a time management level, I would say. The decade began with a divorce from a previous marriage that was no good, but resulted in two kids who I love very much, and then sort of a whirlwind kind of long distance romance that then became a face-to-face living together. And so this last decade with Andy has been my best. But we've faced a lot of challenges. There have been all sorts of job ups and downs, and we lived together. And I'll tell this story probably in one of the Sadler stories. When we moved in together, we had all of our books, much of which went into storage. She had 2 dogs and 2 cats, and we lived in what's called a carriage house apartment with about 400 square feet total. So, and then now we live here, of course, in Milwaukee. We were able to move here in the middle of the decade, and we have a nice apartment in the downtown. And teaching-wise, at a point in time, so I'm kind of fortunate that way. I've transitioned into online teaching. Obviously, the YouTube videos. I'm doing something quite different than I did in the past, which was being kind of other than teaching in a prison, being a rather traditional academic person. So this has been pretty good. Leilani says, happy birthday. I'm happy to have found you. Enjoy your lectures. Thank you very much. Glad you like them. It just skipped a little bit. Here we go. From Mr. Stufflebean. Happy birthday. So grateful for you and all that you do. Thanks very much. That's nice. Ted says, or TD says, happy birthday, man. Wishing you another healthy year going forward. Yeah, let's hope for good health for all of us, especially in a time of pandemic, right? Yashabdara says that I may have been a better professor to him than many who taught them. I made philosophy more interesting. Teaching is an art. I mean, I'm really interested in the philosophers, even the ones I don't agree with. And I try to communicate some of that, and I think it's coming through effectively, that kind of passion, not just for teaching and connecting with people, which I like to do because I am kind of extroverted, if you haven't figured that out. Um, but for the ideas and the philosophers, I'm kind of lucky in that I get to talk about people for whom, for the most part, I really like and admire. So that's cool. Mark says the Half Hour Hegel series is like an extended audiobook. Yeah, and I think some of the other series are like that too. So that's cool. So Irakali asks, "What am I drinking?" I suppose some people may have tuned in. This is Sprecher Brewery here in Milwaukee, one of the first craft breweries in the United States. They're Black Bavarian, which is essentially a Schwarzbier. It's very tasty. It's got a good sweetness to it, good bite to it. It's sort of, you think about like if a stout was a lager and it was done well. That's kind of what it's like. All right, Luntia says, "Happy birthday. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge." You're very welcome. Autodidact says, "Happy birthday to our online teacher. You've been a source of invaluable lessons. Glad that it's been helpful for you." DJ says, "Thanks for all the knowledge over the years. You're very welcome." Alexios, "Happy birthday. I'd be watching more of your videos if I wasn't stuck teaching myself high-level calculus for my econ grad courses." Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And you can always go back to the videos later on, right? Calculus is something I really enjoyed when I was a mathematics major. And taking a calculus class was part of how I ended up becoming a mathematics major. I tested high, right? And so when I went to Lakeland College, not knowing anything about how college worked, my advisor was like, "Your math scores are high," because I took the SAT when I was in the Army. They wanted me to be an officer. He's like, I'll throw you into Calc 1. And I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I took the minimal amount of math I had to get through high school, which was at that time just 2 years for me because I already had like Algebra 1 when I went to high school. And I got into this calc class, and the professor started talking about the theory of limits. And I was like, holy crap, this is math? This is cool stuff, I'd never had math taught to me like that before. It was just memorize these equations, here's some proofs to do. There was never any like real discussion about what was going on with it in terms of ideas. And there at Lakeland College, David Haas and Michael Devaney, and then later on, Maria, we used to call her Maria GK because she had a very long, unpronounceable Polish name, and I don't remember it offhand, but they were people who like made mathematics interesting to somebody like me who was interested in ideas. So calc could be quite good for you. All right, let's see, a bunch of happy birthdays here from people. Here's a question from Changote. "Enjoying your lectures from South Korea. Is this thumbnail inspired by Iron Maiden album covers?" Yeah, that's the Yeti. See, the Yeti before from the somebody posted that, and I thought it was cool, so I put it into the thumbnail itself. Tipo Kansu Guitara. "So I think learning to read and comprehend ancient Greek is still important for the modern philosophy student." It depends, depends on what you want to study. If you want to study Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics and Epicurus and Middle Platonists like Plutarch and people all the way up to in the East, going all the way into Byzantine philosophy, then you probably need it. I mean, if you really want to study German idealism instead, then learn German, and you can learn multiple languages as well. All right. Let's see. Tyler says, "The videos have been super enriching. Glad that they've been good. Lot of other happy birthdays. Thanks to all of you who are wishing me a happy birthday here." Lekomir says, "My work is a big source of knowledge and wisdom, but motivated." Good. motivated me to start some popularizing of good sources in the Polish internet. I'm happy to hear that because YouTube is really Anglocentric. Anglocentric, yeah, I guess is how we would say it, right? And there is a danger. The French have always been harping on this, but there's a danger of there not being enough sources in other languages for the stuff that we're trying to do, right? And I'm always happy to see things happening, initiatives happening in other languages. So, all right. Just skipped a little bit. Alex says, thanks for explaining and making Hegel tangible for a layman. Well, you're very welcome. Glad that it's been helpful. AD, what philosophers are same as Nietzsche, like destroyers of values? I don't know that Nietzsche was aiming at being a destroyer of values. He thought that was already happening. Nihilism is a big problem in his view for the coming century, which was the 20th century, and it would be a problem if he were around today. He wanted to create new values, right? And so, I think you could say there's a lot of philosophers who are inspired by Nietzsche in that respect, or are doing similar things, but maybe not in the same way as Nietzsche. Like look at Max Scheler, the great German phenomenologist, who certainly took some stuff from Nietzsche, but he's like, well, he was wrong about this, and this has to be recontextualized. Or think about other philosophers that have similar critiques of modernity, like say Gabriel Marcel or Martin Heidegger, and are looking for not necessarily creation of completely new values, but at least reconnection to values in the past. So I would say that's maybe an avenue to look in. Scotch says, happy birthday. My videos help keep things in context. Well, that's nice to see too. Context is very important. Pavel says, happy birthday. Thanks for all the great work provided through the years. You're very welcome. Mad Spanner. I discovered you getting into reading Albert Camus. Really enjoyed studying more about the Stoics and existentialists through your videos. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day. Oh, you too. I hope you have a great time. Richard Clemens, how is Foucault different to Nietzsche? I mean, that's sort of like saying, how was Cicero different from Plato? There's lots of places where they're not doing exactly the same thing, but Cicero certainly takes some stuff from Plato, and Foucault certainly took some stuff from Nietzsche. Mark says, I've always heard aging is a privilege. With that said, congrats on the big 5-0. Well, thank you. So this is a good place for me now that I've actually more or less caught up. And if I skipped over anybody, I apologize. It kind of skips around on the side. This is a good opportunity for me to talk a little bit about some of my reflections about turning 50. So to start with, like I said, I never thought I'd be this old. Certainly not when I was in my teens and then my Army days and college and grad school and working as a security guard or in kitchens or woodcutters or janitors or then being a professor first for Ball State University teaching in the prisons, and then down in Fayetteville State University where I did teach one semester at a North Carolina prison, and then being up in New York and being with Andy, and then the move back here to Milwaukee. I mean, as I got closer to 50, it became much more tangible that I would sooner or later be 50, right? But it's one thing to think about it. It's another thing for it to actually happen. And I think one of the things that I've been reflecting on this quite a bit, as you get older, some of you who are older can corroborate this or say whether you think I'm wrong about this, or maybe it's just, some people do it, some people don't. And then those of you who are younger, this is something you can look forward to. When you're younger, you really do kind of feel like you have your whole life ahead of you, and you can putter around and piss away time and stuff like that on things that aren't as important. And sometimes you can even like be bored and be like, man, how am I going to kill some time here? I can't wait for time to run out. But as you're getting older, especially if there's a lot of things that you want to do, if you're engaged with the world, you're engaged with other people, you look at things and you're like, oh man, I'm going to have to do some prioritization here because I'm not going to get to all of this. Prime example of this is I've been able to get rid of books more easily now as I'm getting closer to 50 because I saved all these books. And I was like, well, I got to hold on to this because I might do a research project on this later. And then, with some of them, you're like, nah, that's not going to happen in my lifetime. I mean, if I need to get it, I'll go to the library. I don't need an actual physical copy of this book anymore. I'm probably not going to make that enough of a priority for, the life that I have left to live. And it's similar with other projects. If I want to get the writing things done, I need to start making time in the week, in each day, to work on the writing stuff that I pledged I'm going to be doing. I've got collaborative projects with some authors, and I've got books I want to write. There's a lot of videos I want to produce, filling in gaps in the let's call it online curriculum that's available there. I do want to develop a lot of online classes. I don't know that I want to keep necessarily teaching as many classes for local colleges and universities as I'm doing, because I'm not sure that all of that is such a good use of my time. I'll give you a prime example. So I know like teaching at Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design is a good use of my time because it's minimal hassles. They respect the work that I do. The students are engaged, and I'm helping to form young professionals going out there and get philosophy into their heads. My work with Milwaukee Area Technical College, there's a lot of hassles, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of jumping through hoops that are frankly a waste of time. I keep doing it mainly because it allows me to keep teaching in the Wisconsin prisons online, and I think that's an important thing to do. I don't know that I want to do that 10 years from now. Marquette University, it's fun to teach in the classroom. Their online stuff is kind of a hassle to work with the CTL people. I don't know that I'll always be working with them, and I've got my own Study with Sadler online academy. And I think I'd like to be doing more consulting work and more client-based work as well. So it's all a question about how do I restructure things to make sure that happens, and I get enough time with my wife and my kids and our one remaining pet, and I get enough time to exercise and do the other things that I enjoy doing, taking walks around here in Milwaukee and cooking and also meeting up with friends and doing all those sorts of things. So it's a good time when you are at one of these round number years like 50 or 40 to like take stock and be like, all right, what am I actually spending my time on? What should I be doing? Another thing I want to make more time for is getting this thing out of the case and actually playing my banjo from time to time, and maybe learning how to do it a bit better. I'm practicing that. I'm not always at a pure amateur stage, or taking it was my bass, and now it's my daughter's bass, taking that thing out and playing that every once in a while. So I think these are all things that you kind of put into perspective as you age. I think for me too, having my dad gone when I was 11 and he was only 36, it showed me you anything could happen, right? My mom, she only made it to 54. Actually, no, she was 53 when she died. She hadn't had her 54th birthday. She lived a lot. So did he. My biological dad is still alive and doing quite well. He retired recently, and he's in his 70s, and hopefully he lives into his 90s. But you never know what's going to happen, right? So I think it's really important to put these things into perspective. All right, let me. I see that there's a lot of other new comments and questions. Um, let me scroll up. So, all right, 2. Happy 50th. Your videos helped me make it through my philosophy masters. I have no idea how you keep all that information inside your head. Thanks. So there's actually a story there. Part of it is because of I went to what's considered a lower tier graduate school, but our prelims were tougher than what people at elite schools did because of the way our school worked at that time. Not anymore. At the master's level, you had to take what was called the comprehensive examination. So you would study for it for about the summer maybe, or a whole semester, and you had a reading list, and you would be answering 4 questions. You'd be given 3 possible questions for each of these 4 areas: ancient philosophy, medieval philosophy, early modern philosophy, 19th century philosophy. And you were given a reading list. So like ancient philosophy, would include a whole bunch of Plato's dialogues and, a whole bunch of Aristotle's works, some Stoic stuff, some Epicurean stuff, some Plotinus. I think that was about it for that. Medieval, you had Augustine, Boethius, Anselm, Aquinas, some Occam, some Scotus, right? And then modern was loaded up pretty heavy, and so was 19th century. And you would have 3.5 hours when you went in there, and you didn't know what the questions were ahead of time. And you had to pick one from column A, one from column B, one from column C, one from column D, and write about it. So you really had to know your stuff, right? Or you could try to game it. You could be like, well, I bet there'll be a question on Descartes, so I'll study Descartes, but I won't study Hume. And then if you got there and there was no Descartes question, you were kind of screwed, right? So I did the route of I read everything on the list and studied it and crammed it up in my head in my 20s. And then at the PhD level, I did that 4 more times because we had a special thinker exam. I did Hegel, which meant that I asked, well, what should I do? And they said, memorize the whole dialectical structure of the phenomenology, and the stuff that you think is important in the science of logic too. I was like, okay, and that's what I did. And then we had metaphysics and philosophy of religion, and epistemology, philosophy of science, then value fields, which was ethics, aesthetics, politics. And because of the department, we had people who were analytic philosophers, we had continental philosophers, we had historians, and we had classical American philosophers, and they all put as much stuff as possible into that reading list. So again, I just studied everything in the reading lists, and some of it I actually studied in the original languages. I answered questions about Aristotle on the on the epistemology thing from prior analytics, and it was funny. I got a high pass on that, but one of the instructors took me aside afterwards, and he's like, "You got the Greek wrong on that." That's how rigorous this stuff was. So when you go through something like that, it's sort of like going through, Army Ranger training in the military, except for your brain. And so you retain a lot of that. And so that's been incredibly helpful for me as I went out to teach, because when you teach, unless you're moving into a research position, you got to teach a lot. I did, All right, Max Strong says, you look 35, Greg. Thanks for that. Maybe if you're only looking at the hair on top and not the mustache and beard, which in the earlier part of my 40s was all brown the way my hair is. But then I remember as it started turning gray, and a lot of my friends are like that too. Changote says, do I sometimes give job-related advice to my philosophy students? What would be your advice to a fresh graduate with the least marketable degree seeking career in marketing or sales? Well, philosophy isn't the least marketable degree, and neither is art, by the way. I mentioned I teach students at Milwaukee Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. If you can get a degree in the liberal arts and you do the sort of networking that you need to do, you can walk in and say, listen, I can do problem solving in ways that your business grads can't do. I can do effective written communication. I can take arguments and analyze them, break them down, make them better. There's a whole thing, a lot of things I can do, and I actually do give. When it's not COVID times, I give workshops on what to do with a philosophy degree, both at the undergrad and graduate levels. So yeah, if you're looking for a bit of advice, I would say one of the things that's most important is figure out what skills you actually have and you've been taking for granted. If you can write a dissertation, you have incredible research skills, unless your dissertation sucked, right? And you were lazy. But for the most part, you've learned how to acquire information, how to evaluate sources, being able to articulate that to employers and say, these are the things I can do that your other people may not be able to do as well or at all. I would be of benefit to your team. That's something that I think people have to work on. The other thing I'll say too is I've learned through a lot of working with non-academics and non-philosophers that the one thing that we're really good at training people to do in philosophy is make distinctions. And if we do it well, it's making distinctions at the right time for the right reason. And when you do it, people are like, holy crap, this is magic, right? So I think that's really important. All right. Lintea says, just want you to know I really enjoy your World of Speculative Fiction discussion series. Your very first few group discussion videos were how I discovered your channel. Well, that's good. Yeah, and I'm continuing it. Right now, I'm finishing up my reread of St. Leibowitz and the Wild Horsewoman, so I can do my second video in the new series, since we're back in COVID times, right? So, all right. Zeitgeist, trying to read through Locke's essay concerning human understanding. I'm starting to think it was a mistake. It's quite boring. Anyway, happy birthday. Well, Locke is boring. You want more boring? Read Bentham. Endless, exhaustive lists of examples. But it's worth doing. It's still worth reading. I remember something that Andrew Black, he was a historian of philosophy, analytic philosopher trained, but he was also a really good historian. Works in St. Louis now because he didn't get tenure at Southern Illinois. One of the things he said in our Locke class, because we had a whole seminar on Locke, was, so a lot of you are complaining about reading Locke and what it's like. And he said, just imagine to yourself that this was actually considered to be engaging writing in the 17th century. Times have changed when it comes to style. Right? So, all right. Barklord, every day is a smaller fraction of your whole life than the previous day. Yeah, that's quite true. But you can also look at it going forward and say every day is a larger portion of what's left of your life, right? Especially when you get to the last day, that's it. Now you're at one, not even a fraction. Victor says, happy birthday. Hope you have many more. Hope that for everybody else as well. Mark asks, do I have any intention of writing a speculative fiction book? I would like to. It's a matter of finding the time. I would love to have the time to delve into some of my favorite authors and say, what are the grand themes here? What did they do in their works? It probably would have to be a series of books. And I've always wanted to write a book too, as a side thing, that would go through all of Philip K. Dick's books and say, here are the ideas he's taking from philosophy, from religious studies, from psychology, from these other fields. Here's what the idea is. Here's what he's doing with the idea. Sort of almost like not something more than a glossary, but something along those lines. All right. I just jumped a little bit. Let me find this one. Here we go. Victor says, thanks for caring for prisoners and teaching them philosophy. That's awesome. Well, I did more of that early in my career than I do now. Unfortunately, the teaching that we do here in Wisconsin is all online. So, and it's, when we say online, it's not like normal online classes. They don't actually have contact with the outside internet. They only have a Moodle class site where I've loaded up videos and stuff like that. So they can't do like discussion forums or the stuff we would normally do in a class. So they can't get the full educational experience. But it's still good, you know. I'm glad we can at least do something, because prison education has been disappearing in so many states for so long. All right, Colin Kapoor says, "Happy birthday, love your work. Thanks, glad that you like it." Bingers says, in not sure whose accent it would be, "Happy birthday, Greg." Could be English, could be French, could be Australian, right? Smoke says, "Happy birthday, Professor. Have a good one." I'm gonna definitely try to. Jake says, on your last stream, I unfortunately got in late, couldn't talk in time. I asked what actions should a person take or questions they should reflect on when they aren't sure what to do with themselves. Okay, so this is probably from the AMA, right? Now that's kind of broad, but I think we can say a few things about it. So maybe part of what you would want to do is lay out what your options are. And if you can do that in your head, that's okay, but maybe you want to do that in dialogue with another person, or maybe you want to write it down, you know, and maybe it's something worth doing not just on one occasion, but on multiple occasions. And then that can help you, once you've actually got things laid out, you can then look at each of them and analyze them in depth. That might help as well. All right, Kennard says, "Happy Earth Day, Dr. Sadler." Is it Earth Day today? August 16th? Oh, happy Earth Day, birthday. I get it. Okay. It's like Cockney rhyming slang. I love your Epictetus lectures. I'm glad that you like them. Epictetus is really, you know, a favorite of mine when people ask like things like, if you could only have one Stoic text left, Epictetus's Discourses. I can just stop you right there. That's the one I'm going to keep. You know, that's my favorite one. Lokesh says, "I started reading Alistair McIntyre's Short History of Ethics. His interpretation of Socratic philosophy is so insightful." McIntyre is a good source. There are some things where I don't agree with him on things, but usually I'm pretty happy with what he's got to say. I like his work a lot. All right. That is it for the Black Bavarian. I do, in fact, have another beer on the side, also from Sprecher. Something we bought, trying something new. It's one of their interesting, it's called Shakparo. It's a gluten-free African-style ale made from sorghum and millet. It's pretty good. It's kind of cidery. You'll see it's quite light in color. It makes a nice foamy, or you can see, nice foamy head, right? Got to let it subside a little bit. And I mean, what else can you see? It's got a kind of floral. That's decent. Still, you know, prefer the Black Bavarian, but I thought I'd at least, you know, introduce you to one of our local brews. Because of the sorghum and millet, it has a kind of interesting aroma to it. Like I mentioned, it's kind of fruity, kind of floral, also kind of earthy at the same time. The foam is nice too. Someday I should probably do beer review videos, right? That could be interesting. All right, let's back to this. So, Retro Gamer says, "Happy birthday. Hope you like the gifts. I opened a bag of corn chips to liven up my mood. Will you get your hair done like Iron Maiden's Eddie for the next?" Just wondering. No, I'm not gonna do anything with my hair in particular. That would take like hairspray and stuff like that. And you know, I haven't done anything special with my hair since the 80s. You know, back then we'd like get a blow dryer and we'd feather it. Some of you may remember doing that sort of thing, right? And then, like, I'm going to tell you a funny story. So my sister, of course, was just a little bit younger than me, like at 2.5 years, and it was the 1980s, and we were all into heavy metal, so of course that meant that her hair was long, but she'd also like spray it up with hairspray, and it would go up to about like about like here, right? That was the thing back then. Then it'd be all puffed out on the sides, and when we moved, she had like a mirror and a dresser, and when we moved that stuff, there was like resin from the hairspray, and it was like a quarter of an inch thick because so much of it had sprayed everywhere, right? But it's really kind of gross when you think about it. So, all right. Oh, to Retro Gamer too. Thanks for the gifts he's talking about. Books. I have a Amazon wish list that people have been buying things from, which are primarily philosophy books, speculative fiction books, and then band T-shirts. So for those, actually, let me make it more general. For those who've been getting gifts for my 50th birthday, thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. I put a lot of thought into it, saying, well, what do I really want? What is it that I actually want to have for my birthday? And I'm going to go, hopefully, if it's not closed down, and get a cigar from one of the local tobacco shops, and have it in the park on my birthday, if we can, if the whole area isn't closed off. Had some beer that I like. I'm also I asked my wife to make a German chocolate cake, one of my favorite cakes, and she's also going to make spaghetti and meatballs, which has been one of my favorite dishes since I was a kid. And so really all the only things I really wanted were books and band T-shirts. I couldn't think of anything else. I mean, I've got a good car. I've got most other clothes that I need. I've got a good computer. I've got a good bag to carry it around in. I got my 2 instruments. That's really about it. So yeah, kind of fortunate that way. All right. Charlie asks, how do I live? Well, like I think most other people, I work. That brings in money, and we're pretty frugal. We do order in occasionally, but mostly we make our own meals from scratch here. And we're fortunate that both me and my wife are good cooks. And we live in this apartment here. I go outside to take walks around the city, and I teach online. I work with clients and companies, and that's really about it. All right, Nocturnal Toothbrush, quite a name there. Hey, friend, you helped me write my papers last semester. Don't worry, I cited you. I'm not worried about it. Yeah, I'm glad that the videos helped in some way. Damon, any thoughts on philosophy and humor? Hegel, Socrates are funny but tough to catch. Yeah, you know who else is funny but tough to catch? Thomas Aquinas. There's a website out there, tons of stuff, and they're really subtle, really dry. Let me put in a plug too for a friend of mine, Michael Connell, who's an Australian comedian who does stoic comedy. Really funny guy. Again, if you like dry humor, if you want other kinds of stuff, he's not so funny, but I think he's hilarious. I like him so much that when he asked me to do a philosopher's commentary on his comedy routine, I jumped at the chance to do it, and that's out there as well. All right, Nicholas, I finished my UG dissertation on the commodification of data today. Very cool. Feels good and tempted to do a master's. Yeah, I mean, why not? It certainly couldn't hurt. And the commodification of data today, that's an interesting topic. All right. I just jumped again. Let me scroll here. Cody says, happy birthday. Know that you're changing lives and sparking joy of philosophy. That's really great. I'm glad that the videos can do that. Diogenes says, I know you said Ballard wasn't on the cards anytime soon, but you mentioned you read Crash. What do you make of the novel? Wish you the best. It was okay. I didn't really get into it that much. Maybe if I read more Ballard, I'll see what other people really like about the guy. Vishnu says, happy birthday, Sadler. I've been watching your critical thinking class videos. It's great. Please add more classes. Well, I don't know that I'm going to add more classes anytime soon because those are like recorded in a classroom, and obviously we're not doing face-to-face teaching anymore, right? But, we'll see. Mad Spanner says, wicked shirt. I'm typing for my thrash punk band account, writing about wrestling with the idea of the absurd. We have a current unreleased song called Uni Fuck Me Well and Truly. Yeah, but that's just dancing around being a dropout, burnout, working out my own issues. But I love studying, and your channel is nostalgic for me in an academic sense. Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I remember having my year in between grad school and undergrad here in Milwaukee when Milwaukee was not quite such a nice city, working just 5 blocks from here at the 100 East building as a third shift security guard, and then popping over to work in a coffee house and then crashing and working out and coming back and doing it again and listening to a lot of kind of angry music and making a bit of music of my own and all of that, doing that in my 20s. All right. John says, love your stuff. Happy birthday. Have I read Patrick J. Deenan's book, Why Liberalism Failed? No, I haven't read that. Let's see here. Richard says, happy birthday, peace and prosperity to you. You too as well. Here's a continuing thing from Mad Spanner. What I'm basically saying is your channel has been a really big deal for me, having a reference for clearly explaining often difficult texts. That said, I would love to see more trolley memes. Well, I'm not making trolley memes. Other people got to make them, and then I aggregate them. So I wonder, I think I may have had like some others in a folder about what philosophers had to say. Yeah, because I did the first thing, and then I did COVID-19. So I think I do have a stock for trolley memes. And I would like to do some other meme things as well, where I'm showing like variations and commenting on them. But it's a matter of finding the time. Mark said beer reviews would be great. I would enjoy doing that because I enjoy drinking beer. Vishnu has to throw some rain on the parade. I'm worried drinking beer makes anyone fat. Not good for health. Don't know if I can say this or not. In moderation, I think it's fine. Yes, if you're like drinking a 12-pack a day, but you got to remember that I'm from the beer-producing region of, this is Wisconsin and this is Milwaukee. This is the beer city. So it's almost like a patriotic duty, right? Same thing with milk and cheese here. All right. Let's see. Again, it just jumped a little bit. Here we go. Sam Scarver. Happy birthday, Dr. Sadios. Helped immensely with my UG studies of Anselm. Have kept me engaged with philosophy as I move from my humanities undergrad into studying medicine. Good. And you can continue studying philosophy no matter what sort of profession you move into. You can always keep up with philosophy. It looks like we had an unstable connection there for a minute, fluctuation in the interwebs. As I was saying, you can always continue in whatever career you're going into. You can continue studying philosophy. We're really fortunate in that so long as we have the internet, all these texts are available for free online. You just got to dig around. You can find good web pages discussing them, podcasts, video resources. We're really quite blessed. Victor says, I'm drinking White Claw raspberry. That's something I haven't tried. People are getting into those. To me, those remind me of like people drinking Zima back in the 90s. All right, Retro Gamer says, strong ethics is instinct is both sword and shield. against those who err and wrong foot you? Or is the distraction by a multitude of pleasures the first answer to tribulation? Any maxims? I don't know that I have any maxims offhand. Maxims are little quips. But I mean, I don't really rely too much on quotes or passages or things like that. I just kind of think about, well, what is the right thing to do, and it's like bringing to bear people from classic texts for me. So, all right, Unterstütze Kommunikation says, happy birthday from Germany. Any thoughts on Richard Rorty and metal-related thoughts on black metal? The only ostensibly black metal band that I'm into is Venom, and that's because they're part of the new. I listened to them when I was a kid in the '80s, and they're part of the new wave of British heavy metal. I don't really get into most of the genre metals. I mean, thrash is an older genre that was around in forming in the '80s, and I do like quite a bit of thrash stuff. I like new wave of traditional heavy metal. I like power metal and doom metal, but that's basically about it as far as the newer genres. Richard Rorty, interesting guy. He was a big deal when I was in graduate school, maybe undeservedly so. I think people probably won't be reading him much, 100 years from now. All right. Carol says, happy birthday. I'm from the Philippines. You've reached us here. You've been a great philosophy guide to some of us here trying to free ourselves from externals. So that sounds stoic. I'm glad that you've found useful stuff in the videos or in maybe Stoicism Today or things like that. Nicodemus says, happy birthday. I just want to say thank you for sparking my interest in philosophy. That's always nice to read as well. I'm glad to hear it. Corey says, I've been reading Rousseau's Discourse on Inequality. Do I think his views regarding humans in a state of nature is more accurate than Hobbes? No, because I think both of them are equally inaccurate. so I don't think we have to choose between them. They're both kind of imaginary stuff. Nick Rasmussen says, happy birthday. Your content is incredibly helpful for my own self-directed study. Yeah, self-directed study is really where a lot of people are going to be going, in the future. As our universities and colleges provide less and less and charge us more and more, I think that's an important way to go. Ken says, very happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you as well. Petros asks, are you a theist? Yes. Let's see. Devani says, just want to say a book breaking down the ideas of Philip K. Dick's work would be killer. I'd read it in a heartbeat and could even envision teaching a class with it. That would be quite fun to do. I have to see if somebody else has already done it, though, or not, Vincent says, happy birthday. You sound like a minimalist based on your wish list. I'm not really a minimalist. I've got most of the stuff that I want to have, I've got, like I said, I've got pretty much most of the clothes that I want to have. Like we go on like buying things and I'm covered for pants now for a long time, right? Or like underwear or socks go on sale, or we jump on that, we also stock up on foodstuffs when they're on sale. So, all right, Gabriel says, happy birthday, rock on, lots of love. Thanks, man. Internet God, happy birthday, whoever the hell you are. Okay. Jonathan says, here to wish you a happy birthday. Your videos are tremendous help to me and help me popularize philosophy among my friends. That's cool. I'm not the mouth for these ears. Yeah. I'm glad that you've got something you can share that hopefully can reach them. That's that happy medium I'm trying to shoot for. Lucas says, loved your Nietzsche phase video, going through my Nietzsche phase now. That is often indeed a phase that we go through. Drunk Philosopher. Recently finished Kant's First Critique, thought The Antinomies is one of the best things to ever read. Thanks for helping me get into reading philosophy critically. Glad it could help. Kay says, what are your thoughts on numbers existing outside human perception? I've heard both sides of the argument, but can't come to agree wholly on either side. I haven't thought about that for a long time. I would have to devote more thought to it. Vishnu says, what made you get an interest in philosophy? At what age did I get an interest? I think I've always been interested in what we call, broadly speaking, philosophy, ideas, and examining them and seeing the connections between them. I didn't really understand what philosophy was until later on. And very often the way philosophy gets taught, it's so truncated. We don't teach that much stuff, that would really appeal to people. I was fortunate in that I wound up having a few good interactions and a few good teachers here and there, and I just kind of continued throughout. All right, Rachel Dean says, happy birthday. You're the reason I got an A in continental philosophy. Glad to read it. Gabriel says, happy birthday from Chile. Love your lectures. Thanks. So we're at the end of the questions and comments, so I'm not going to do any more right now. We've spent about an hour here. I've had a few reflections. Let's do one final toast, since I still have a bit of beer left. And what should we toast to this time around? Let's say to all of us remaining safe and healthy and COVID-free and able to proceed with our studies and our lives well and our relationships over the coming year. Victor says to health. That sounds good. So little virtual clinking glass there for all of you. And I hope all of you have a great day. Thanks so much for joining me for this. My actual birthday, as you remember, is 2 days from now, but the Democratic National Convention is happening just a block from here, so we may not actually have internet. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'm glad all of you could join me, and hope this winds up being a good decade after we get through this terrible 2020 for all of us.